Um, Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Introduction to Knight-Thompson Speechwork webinar that is free. We're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you could be in the Zoom room with us. Couple things you've probably heard in other Zoom contexts. Make sure you're muted. By default, we will have opportunities where we unmute and share sound. Yes, and then we prefer if your video is on, but you know, totally understandable if you prefer to have your video off. And any other big ground rules things that I'm missing, Keri?
I don't believe so. I'm just gonna peek through here and mute people if I don't see that you're muted already.
Marvy.
But please go ahead and mute yourselves.
Yes. Oh, yes, and that reminds me. So we'll be, as an overview real quick, before we get into it, we'll be talking about, you know, what is the work and what's the overview of the work. We'll be doing some of the work. So questions and questions as they arise. We're gonna have a very good chunk of time at the end to do questions and answers. So as questions arise, enter them in the chat. Hold on to them. We will get to your questions as they come.
Great. So with that said, hi, my name is Philip Thompson, and I am, hi, I'm Keri Safran, and I'm very happy to be here today. We thought that we would start with a little bit of introduction and a little bit of talking about what drew us to Knight-Thompson Speechwork. So again, my name is Keri Safran. I'm a certified Knight-Thompson Speechwork teacher. What drew me to this work was that I was looking for a place where I could train more formally to coach accents. And this was really the only place that popped up. Even graduate programs didn't really seem to focus on this in a concentrated way. And so I took the very first class that I could, which is called Experiencing Speech. And then the reason that I stayed and continued on was because I found the work to be very logical, very practical. To me, Knight-Thompson Speechwork basically says, these are the parts of your face and your vocal tract. This is how you can manipulate them. Now go forth and make character choices. I really responded to that, and that's why I continued on. Full step.
Guys, hi, I'm Foster Johns. I'm also a certified Knight-Thompson Speechwork teacher. And what drew me to the work, my background is as an accent coach and a speech coach, and what drew me to this work specifically is, as Keri said, it's very practical. You get a lot of concrete knowledge about anatomy, about linguistics as it relates to the voice. But I love that everything in this work is led by curiosity, and that there's so much possibility in the work, and that the work, it's about the work, right?
Not the work, darling.
The work. That the work, it's translatable to so many fields in theater. Accent coaching. I use a lot of things around speech, like fluency and linguistic detail in Shakespeare. There's a lot of ways to find ways into the work and apply it to your work as a performer, or just as anyone who has to use their voice in a professional context.
And we wanted to tell you a little bit about the history of Knight-Thompson Speechwork.
Yes.
I'll let Foster continue.
We wanted, so this is what we were drawn to the work, but what is the work? Knight-Thompson Speechwork. It is named for its two founders, Dudley Knight and Philip Thompson. I'll tell you a little bit about Dudley Knight. He sadly is no longer with us. Before he left us this work. a work that started when he was a student of Edith Skinner, someone you might be familiar with, an early 20th century voice and speech teacher. He trained with Edith Skinner, and then he went on to teach at UC Irvine. And there, he was experiencing, as he was teaching this work that he learned, students having varying responses to the work and some negative responses to the work. And so he wondered, what if I could take this amazing work that I learned, and instead of putting it into this framework of good American speech or correct or incorrect, right or wrong speech, that he looks at all the speech actions that are possible and developing tools around those. So as I said, he taught at UC Irvine, where he met Philip Thompson.
And Philip Thompson started out, Philip is very formal, Phil started out as a student, I believe, of, admitting people into the thing. Started out as a student and then joined the faculty at UC Irvine. And today heads up the program there. Also works as a coach out in the world, like at South Coast Rep. He headed up our certification that Foster and I did last summer alongside Andrea Cabal. And the certification is the final piece of the KTS training. It starts with, as I mentioned earlier, a course called Experiencing Speech. Then there's a phonetics intensive. Then there's a course called Experiencing Accents. And if you continue on, then with the certification, that's the final piece. And then we continue to have webinars. We try to do them monthly. Foster and I are the webinar coordinators right now. We try to do them monthly when there is not a pandemic. It's hard to do, but we're doing our best. So we continue with that. And those webinars are on all different sorts of topics. They're either free or like $10, very accessible, very cool. And so that's sort of what's happening with Knight-Thompson Speechwork these days. And that leads us to the framework that we base the beginnings of the teachings on from, or that framework that we use. I know how to talk, you guys. And Foster's going to now show us something very special that we referred back to over and over again.
Yes, Keri, I feel you. I feel like that's been happening a lot these days, and I always just say, I teach voice and speech. And anyway, so yes, as Keri mentioned, there's a number of workshops you can take with Knight-Thompson Speechwork, but as we're hoping and knowing that your curiosity for the work is going to be on fire from this work, there is a way you can start. It's this book that Dudley Knight wrote called Speaking with Skill. And that book, Amani, exactly.
Yes,
pick up your copy if you haven't. So in this book, let's start from the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. With the preface of this book, and y'all, I'm full confession, I'm an alliteration junkie, to use that term affectionately. So the preface is entitled Principles, Perhaps. Principles. And Keri and I are going to read these principles for you. There are 8 principles that Dudley lays out as a precursor to the work that you're about to do. The first principle is, this work tries to respond to the genuine need of the actor or vocal performer as related to speech.
This work is based on the observation that the vocal and speech needs of the actor within performance are constantly changing and are never fixed.
This work recognizes that biases about the beauty of individual speech sounds are endemic and inevitable.
This work tries to place a firewall between these inevitable biases, including those of the author, and the pedagogy itself.
Perhaps my favorite, the only standard that we can set for speech training is intelligibility.
This work is based on the development of useful skills that the actor can own.
This work embraces complexity in its content. Ooh, more alliteration.
And finally, this work embraces contradiction as an essential tool of teaching. And I want to piggyback on that last comment by reading something that our colleague Julie Faux said. And she is one of the, we're not sure, is she a master teacher of KTS? We're not sure. We're designating her. Yes, she is. Connie's not. She's a master.
Master.
She's a master. So this is what she said. I'm paraphrasing a little. KTS work is descriptive rather than prescriptive. And it tries to dismantle hierarchy within accents and undue preference to any pronunciation pattern or accent, getting rid of any idea of a standard. I think that's pretty cool. So if we continue with the book and the course of experiencing speech basically mirror each other. And we start out in experiencing speech. We start from silence and then move into breath and flow and creak and phonation. We examine the anatomy of the vocal tract. What are the bones and muscles and ligaments? What's responsible for what kind of movement, etc.
And in part 2 of this book, taking up from there, basically you explore every sound that a human being is capable of making, further refining that down into what sounds tend to occur in languages around the world. Once you identify those sounds, you take those sounds and you start to chart them, which is a precursor to a phonetic understanding of the work, like as a precursor to phonetic charts.
So there's a deep dive then into phonetics, and in experiencing speech, you know, you'll basically slap an empty chart on the wall and you will take yourself through as a group the actual speech actions, the instructions for the physical movement, and the location in the vocal tract. So you're really experiencing everything slowly, piece by piece, as sound gesture, really making it a physical movement that you can execute, which I think for actors is very empowering. We like to be able to do, you know, tell me something I can do, and then I can attach intention to it or meaning to it. So phonetics is another big part of that, and really exploring that IPA chart, the vowel space, the symbols, all of that.
Yeah. And so having experienced it, you know, knowing the anatomy, being able to analyze it and capture it phonetically, identify and chart, and having basically all these skills, the final part of the text explores things like formal and informal speech, linguistic detail and fluency. How to, you know, basically take all these skills and build further awareness around speech, what's at your disposal, and looking at, like, you know, this, you know, maybe if I'm doing a contemporary play, a little more informal, a little more fluent speech is appropriate. If I'm doing heightened language, or if I'm doing a specific accent, maybe a little more linguistic detail is needed. So yeah, that's just an overview of what you can expect if you have a copy but haven't looked on it yet, if you haven't gotten the copy, etc. Just trying to avoid it being like infomercially about the book. But great book if you haven't checked it out yet. It's available as a book as well.
And I was just going to add, you can do everything that's in the book at home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's designed for you to do.
Yeah, it includes this DVD, which is really a CD. And first question, where do I play it? But the second question might be, who's on it? It's Dudley Knight himself. So you get to experience his voice, which I just think is absolutely lovely. Keri, should we do some work?
Let's do some work.
Should we work?
Let's work it out.
Let's work it out. Okay, we're gonna do some stuff together. Before we do some stuff together, just a couple things. Again, reminder about muting and video on or off, preferred on, but off if needed. We are in the time of the Rona. So it would be very remiss of me if I didn't say to wash or sanitize your hands if that is a concern for this session. There will be a couple moments where you will be invited to touch your face and in fact thrust your fingers inside your mouth for a particular exercise. So make sure they clean. Okay, let's do it. So everyone, find yourself in a comfortable but alert position.
And as we do this, we invite you to forget everything that you know about making sound.
Yes, I was just about to say that. Just please remember, yeah, just forget everything you know about speech. As a trained actor or just someone who's curious, everything you know about talking. Find yourself comfortable. Take a few breaths. And for a moment, I want you to experience silence. And some of you might smirk or giggle at this, A, because I'm continuing to talk as I ask you to experience silence, but also whatever space you're in, you may not be in a very silent space. But if you're not, allow those sounds that you hear to coax curiosity. And now moving from the sound or lack of sound that is in your space, I want you to draw closer attention to the sound or lack of sound of your breath. And as you bring further awareness to that, I invite you to increase the flow to your comfort level of that breath so that maybe you can get a little bit more of a sonic sensation of the sound of your breath. And enjoy the potential relaxing moment of that as you just bring your awareness to the breath. And now we're going to shift the various ways in which we experience breath. For first, experiencing breath in and out of the nasal cavity or the nose. So just breath in through the nose and out through the nose exclusively. And just clock what that sensation is, whether it's the feeling of it or the sound of it. In through the nose and out through the nose. You might have guessed the next bit, in through the mouth and out through the mouth, leaving the nose out of it a little bit. Whatever connotations are around mouth breathing, just let those go. and experience breath solely in and out through the mouth. In a delicious, light, Darth Vader-y fashion. What about in through the nose, out through the mouth? What about in through the mouth, out through the nose? It's an interesting sensation for me personally. And now just breathe in whichever way you choose. But as you breathe in whatever way you choose, start to engender some curiosity about what is the breath touching as the breath leaves the body and as the breath enters the body. Where are you feeling that distinct coolness on the way in and heat on the way out? Fabulous. Now we're going to introduce just a little more sound, and the sound we're going to play with is abbreviated as the RVT, or the relaxed vocal tract sound, also affectionately known in phonetic terms as the schwa. And really, it's just everything is relaxed, the tongue, the jaw, everything, and all it is just a simple utterance of gorgeous. Can be short, can be long, however you prefer. In your own time, you don't feel the need to kind of keep up pace with the way that I'm doing it. Just a nice little nothing. Dudley in the book affectionately, non-judgmentally calls this the sound of stupidity. I think it's lovely to embrace one's own stupidity. I also, the long form, like to call it the sound of of a loved one giving you an unexpected massage. Just nice and relaxed. And let's play with that sound a little bit. So let's maybe add a little creak to that. So a little creak, a little fry, very distinct, different action with the vocal folds. With those lax, nice, loose folds. Maybe a little breathy schwa. Allowing a little more breath, a little less subglottic pressure through. And let's play the really fun one. Let's send the sound back in, as it were. So release whatever breath you have, and let's phonate as we take the breath in. Resembling a sort of gasp. You can maybe even play with some speech at this point. Hello, my name is Foster. What we term as ingressive speech. So we have both egressive and ingressive sensations to that. So we've just taken a brief exploration of breath, sound, letting the vocal folds move. Now we're going to draw our attention a little bit more to the different things we can do to shape sound, starting with the jaw. Keri.
Muting myself. So let's just start by saying hello to this big chunky fella, this muscle here, the masseter. And you can play a little bit of piano. You can drag the fingertips down and allow the teeth to part and some sound to come out if it wants to. Normally I would spend a lot more time here, but we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to keep moving, kitty cats. So let's talk about the movements we can make here. We can have a nice jaw that we open. We can close it. So let's do that. And repeat that a little. We can protrude the jaw and retract. Protrude. Retract. Maybe only protrude enough to have the teeth say hello. And let's have that movement in a continuous flow. Maybe back the other way. We can also go from side to side, although I don't think we find that in too many speech actions, although that could be a character choice. And Foster, you want to talk to us about the lips?
The lips, absolutely. So having brought some awareness to the jaw, let's bring our awareness to the lips, and let's just give those a nice stretch. This is the exciting part where you're going to thrust whichever fingers you prefer into your mouth around the corners, if you wish, and just stretch those puppies out. Yeah. You know, it's known as a lateral lip stretch. You can go diagonal, you can go side to side. And if you really want to give your orbicularis oris a workout, who doesn't? Keep that stretch and just work against your fingers with your lips. So give a nice stretch and resist. Gorgeous. And let that go. Wipe as you need. Maybe a little buzz through the lips to experience that newfound freedom in the lips. Now, I want you to imagine throughout this exploration of the lips, if you wish, if you don't wish and just want to do some things, great too. I want you to imagine that you have some magnets on either side of your mouth in the corners of your lips, and you're holding those magnet partners just on the outside. So maybe keep them a little away from you. Just accept the fact that you have magnets in the corners of your lips. And then maybe as you bring them closer to the sides, the corners of the lips come out straight toward the ears in what I affectionately call llama smile. Just right up to the sides. And then, oh boy, now I'm curious. Let's bring those magnets straight up to the cheeks in what I like to call clown smile. Yeah. And then all the way diagonal and up in what I like to call commercial headshot smile. Hey. Nice. And let's lower that gently down to clown smile. Down to llama. Let's maybe go the other direction now. Bring that a little bit down into just registering slight disappointment. Maybe bring the magnets together and let the lip quiver, activating your mentalis muscle. It's right here. You can even do a little whimper sound with that. And then all the way down into extreme disappointment, which might take out your platysma muscle in your neck. Yes. And then just have a fun free-for-all with the magnets. You can bring it another direction. Up, down. You can let go of your magnets at this time if you wish, and then just let that lead some exploration of the lips. And you might find, as I'm finding right now, my jaw, you know, the jaw just got a little bit of attention. It's like, ooh, I can play. Might want to come in for the assist with the lips, and that's fine. But see if you can encourage just the muscles around the lips to do the work. And as I say muscles, I should briefly mention, if Keri or I named the muscles, it's because we spent a lot of time learning those names. No, we also just mention it to bring awareness to the fact that there are multiple muscles that are responsible for multiple things in your voice and speech. All right, few more things, fun things around the lips. Let's bring those lip corners back out to the sides, whichever side you want. And then let's round them like you're a little baby cherub spitting water in a fountain. And then out. and then out, out. Let's maybe wrap the lips under the teeth. Pretending that you have no teeth, and then trumpet them out. French model. Yeah. Je. In fact, if you want to say that the French word for I to enjoy that sound, je. Oui, je m'appelle Foster. And then under, and then trumpet out. And now, Keri, I'm going to turn it to you for the temps.
Très bien. So let us look at the tongue. Allow your tongue to emerge from your teeth and just rest on this lower lip. And now point it at something across the room. And let it go wide and flat like a pancake again. And point. Wide and flat. Point. Keep that engagement as you slowly retract the tongue back inside the teeth while maintaining that nice engaged channel, bunched tongue tip. Do it slowly. It is hard. Once you're there on the inside, keep the tongue inside the teeth. See if you can now go wide and flat like a pancake again and say hello to these molars, to the inside of those upper back teeth there. And press against that little area. And now see, still inside the teeth, if we can bunch again. Glorious. And let that go for a moment. Let's blow some air through the lips. Excuse me, the tongue. And you can do that with some vibration now. Marvelous. Let's say hello to some tongue root advancement. What does that mean? Let the tongue tip rest behind these bottom front teeth, and we're gonna unfold the tongue. Like that. And let it come back to resting. And let's do that one more time. And back. And what if we pull back in the other direction, a little tongue root retraction? You might feel the tip of your tongue move away from your teeth a little bit. You might feel a little bit of activation here. And let that come back to your normal spot. And retract one more time. And let that go. Great. Let's all, so here's my tongue. We're gonna do a little arching movement. So we're gonna say hello to the roof of the mouth. And let's do that with the following sound. Let's all go E, E, E. So I'm gonna imagine I can hear all of you going E, E, E.
E, E, E.
Oh, thank you, Foster. So that action we would call arching. So E, E, E. Now let's do another sound. Let's try ah, ah, ah.
Ah, ah, ah.
Foster's my guinea pig now. Let's go back and forth between the two for a moment. E, ah, E, ah, E, ah.
E, ah, E, ah, E, ah.
Fabulous. Let's do something similar. Let's all try ooh, ooh, ooh.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Marvelous. One more time. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
And now let's try ah, ah, ah.
Ah, ah, ah.
And let's go back and forth. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah.
Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah.
Let's try that one more time. This time, I invite you to maybe put a gentle finger point on your chin to remind your jaw that this round, the jaw doesn't have to help, and we'll just let the tongue do the work. So ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah.
Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah.
And the jaw can still be open, but we want to sense into the movement of the tongue body. So the tongue body, what do I mean when I say that? Let's talk about the parts of the tongue very quickly. So here's my tongue. If we're talking about this edge here, this is what we're going to refer to as the tip of the tongue. If we're talking about that sort of band of tissue there, aka my fingernail here, we're going to call that the blade of the tongue. Then we're going to talk about this magical space, and this is the dorsum, or the body of the tongue. About that space. So that would take up about here, and then back here, we referred to it already, the root of the tongue root. So we've got that all split up. This tongue body here, we also split this up into 3 sections, really easy to remember: front, middle, back. Just now, when we did e, ah, we were doing a little mini tongue push-up with the front of the dorsum here. So let's try that one more time now that we kind of know what's happening. E, ah, e, ah, e, ah. And you can look at yourself in your little zoom camera if you want to see that movement a little. E, ah, e, ah, e, ah. Fantastic. Now, when we did our ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, we were using the back of the dorsum. So let's try that now. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. You'll also notice, because I see lots of you looking in your cameras, that you're doing a little bit of this lip rounding to help with that ooh sound, which is cool. So when we did that E sound, when we did that ooh sound, we had that arching movement. And when we did the opposite end of the push-up, we did something that we call cupping. So those are the 2 main movements we have with that dorsum, that body of the tongue: arching, cupping. Foster, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, so now that we've arched and cupped and looked specifically at the tongue and the jaw, what basically the tongue, lips, and jaw are capable of, let's just have a free-for-all with a movement. Let's start moving your face. I don't think I've ever given that direction in teach. Just move your face. So just start.
Move everything that can move.
Move everything that can move on the face. And y'all, newsflash, what we're doing is, there's a term for it. It's known as gurning. And after this session is done, if you want to have some fun, Google gurning. I told you, alliteration. Google gurning. There are professional gurning competitions that are annual for whoever can make the most extreme face. So, yeah, just move the lips, the eyebrows, the forehead. If you feel that you tend to be doing one motion, just encourage yourself to do something opposite.
And as you're doing this, why don't we all take a nice inhale and exhale so you can just hear the breath coming through these shapes.
And as you explore in this fashion, let's see what happens if we take this external exploration with the face, and if not already doing so, allow the inside to explore as well. The tongue, the roof of the mouth, the pharynx, the vocal tract, everything that you can move. Allow to move.
Let's continue to encourage exhaling with some breath. Let's exhale now, adding some vibration or some vocalization. And we invite you to unmute yourselves for 10 seconds. Here we go as we make these wild sounds together. We invite you to unmute yourselves again. So go ahead and mute yourselves one more time and continue this exploration. And wherever you are, freeze. Take an inhale through the mouth so you could feel where that air hits. And then exhale with some vocalization.
And start moving again. Really go for it. Yeah, really go for the exploration. Be curious and freeze. Freeze. Wherever you are, take an inhale. And exhale on sound. Hey.
Keep moving.
Ow.
And freeze. Inhale through the mouth. Exhale the sound. Stay where you are. And from this place, start to say hello to the nearest points of articulation that we mentioned earlier. So say hello using your tongue, whatever, and your lips, and whatever is easiest to reach from where you are. Just like and unmute yourselves for 10 seconds with this.
Hello.
Hello, this is interesting. Trying to talk like now. It's a little difficult to do entirely without having my text actually touching each other. They talk. Talking like that. A little technical.
Mute right there.
More than 20.
And then maybe one more move. And so once you've found, maybe keep that shape that you've just found. If you want to make any adjustments out of curiosity, just to see, hey, what if I move the lips slightly this way, the tongue slightly that way? And by virtue of your greeting, you have established that you are from a place that does not include English, Spanish, Italian, whatever is your native language of origin. This is your language. This is the language that you speak in. And you've just remembered the national anthem of this place where you're from, which actually, while you're muted, or let's unmute very briefly, let's name this place where you're from. I'll introduce it. Chicka.
This is so beautiful. And from here, now that you know where you're from, I want you to think about the pride that you have in this place. And for 10 seconds, we will unmute and you sing in your language the national anthem. I will start. Sing different, Bees on That was so beautiful. Let's all shake that out for a second.
Yes, give yourself a nice shake. All over the body, just the face, whatever you wish. And so what we've done, folks, is just to recap. We did a lovely exploration of the journey from from silence to the experience of the various ways we breathe to sound, just in a simple utterance. We broke down the possibilities of the jaw, the lips, the tongue, and then we basically took all of that and we just did what we like to do in KTS, which is just explore and experience and kinesthetically feel what we're doing, which is a jumping board off to many things.
And there's so many things I want to say from here, but we're at the time that we set for ourselves to take questions, and I'm sure after all of that wildness, there probably are some. So I'm going to curb my enthusiasm, and I am going to leave things there just for the moment, and I'm going to take a quick peek in this chat to see if there are any questions in here that I want to address that were here, and then y'all can think about anything that you wanted to ask about. What is the length of today's workshop? About an hour. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Should the pointy tongue be, I love this, here we go. Should the pointy tongue be against the top or the bottom teeth when inside the teeth? I totally understand that question. I think in that moment of just pulling it back, it would have been fine for that pointy tongue to have hit the top and to sort of stayed on an even plane in that way, but it's okay if it didn't. What we were really doing is sort of trying to maintain our focus on that particular muscle engagement while it was being challenged with the other movement at the same time of retraction. And then we were just trying to experience this bunching and channeling inside the space of the mouth, having already tried it outside where we could see it and maybe access it a little bit more easily. So I hope that helped.
Quick question, if I may. I love the tongue push-up stuff. When I'm making the ooh ah, I find that I can do it with only my lip shape, changing the sound, or with the arching in the back of the tongue, doing most of the work. Ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah, or ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah. And I'm just curious, what's the right way that we're looking for activation? And if you could speak on that a little.
Yeah, I do. I love this question. Partly because when I was taking all the workshops in this work, when I started looking at this work, when I started looking in the book, for example, Dudley goes through all of the vowel sounds that you find on the IPA chart, and he defines the physical actions of those vowels. And as you're encouraged to do in KTS, you're encouraged to doubt and question. And I'm not saying you're doubting, you're questioning in this question. But for example, when I was investigating an ah sound, like I crossed my arms firmly and said, I don't have to cup my tongue when I make that sound. So the answer to your question, I think, instead of looking at it as like what's the right way to do it, it's investigated in terms of like a tendency. And if one way or the other, what are the two ways that you mentioned?
When I was, if I keep my tongue perfectly still, I can make the same ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah.
Yeah.
As you walked us through very ably, you know, the rear dorsum of the tongue is it wants to be involved. and it is, you know, shaping the sound in a way that doesn't sound like your tongue is limp. You know what I mean? Like it's a human making a sound.
I would encourage you to maybe try this out in slow motion, because if we're operating from a place of sort of experiencing it first as opposed to pointing to the chart and then trying to execute what the vowel chart is trying to tell us to do, we might learn something about what's actually happening when we're making sounds as opposed to what we think is happening or to what the chart is saying. So if I'm here and I'm going, that's a little different than for me. So sometimes going in slow motion is a way to really hone in on what's actually happening. And oh, maybe there was an imperceptible movement, because I'll tell you, this dorsum is a frickin' wizard of subtle movement. It's unbelievable what it's able to produce in that tiny little space with the tiniest bits of adjustments. So, and the other thing is that everyone's face is different. So what happens in your face might feel, have a different point of orientation than someone else's.
I love that idea of like just really exploring it slow, like in terms of like what is specifically happening, and then after having that exploration, you can go further to putting it into language. You know, if you're going, for example, if you're going with the oo sound, if I don't move the tongue, poop, poop, versus poop, poop.
Yes, exactly. It's so much more on point when we're involving all of the articulators, and I hear so much more specificity. I guess I was worried, like I guess maybe I was involving my lips too much, or that the exercise is supposed to be geared towards the tongue and I was going down the wrong investigation there. I don't know. You've explained it beautifully, and it's clear to me.
Lovely. I want to address a couple of the questions we have here in the chat, first from Will, then from Anna. Will asked, can you explain posture? Is that kind of like how we froze mid-gurn and spoke from that spot? Why, yes, Will, it is. So posture, oral posture, vocal tract posture, just posture, whatever you want to call it, we can refer to it as what is the home base for the jaw, for the tongue, for the lips, sometimes the velum, the soft palate. What is the launch pad for the sounds that I'm targeting? What is the easiest place from which to make the sounds that I'm targeting? That would be the oral posture of any given accent or language. So it would be the sort of shortcut or the thing that rounds out all the other sounds that may not sound like huge changes, but when put through this filter, they're adjusted just enough to sound like that area.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Foster, before?
Nothing to add. I thought that was excellent. I love the idea of home base. I love the idea of tendency as well for oral posture. That's where, you know, how the articulators tend to move in a particular way. Anna has an excellent question. I'm curious, is there a position you should keep your tongue when it's at rest, or is it more about what will influence character choice? Keri?
Two things. One, you can Google a lot of materials on resting tongue position. So in my personal Linklater training, there's a lot of work about releasing the tongue from the roof of the mouth. And then in my singing training, there's a lot of encouragement about the strength of nerve engagement when the tongue is at a resting position on the roof of the mouth. And I think generally that's where tongues do tend to live. I think the Linklater thing just always comes from a place of ease of movement, ease of making sound. And so that's, I think, where that encouragement comes from. Correct is a word that we are careful with. And then, yes, when it comes to what will influence character choice, that's a posture thing. Yeah, so what is this character's tongue house or position?
Totally. Totally. And ooh, Floyd, a fellow certified KTS teacher, Floyd Kennedy, has, hope you don't mind, I used your last name. Yeah, offered something in the chat around the tongue as well. I find it helps to try moving the tongue without rounding and unrounding the lips, just to help me feel the tongue in isolation. It's hard to say ooh without rounding, but the tongue knows how to go to the ooh position. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the level of experimentation around speech that you can take in this work. You know, what else, what happens if the lips aren't involved? What happens if the lips are over involved? What happens, you know, if I held the jaw this way, if I held the jaw completely open? It further provides insight into sounds we hear on a daily basis.
Fabulous. There are two things in the chat. I'm going to answer the more recent one. Victor says, if we've dabbled in other accent coaching or vocal methods like Linklater, will that be a help or a hindrance to learning the KTS method? I think anything you've ever done that has brought awareness to the facility that is here is awesome.
I agree.
KTS is all about possibility. What's here? What can we do? Not what should we do?
Yes. Ooh, and lastly, Tina asks, really exciting question. What's the most challenging accent that you found teaching the American English original dialect actor? And if, well, there's a ton, there's a few interesting ones. I mean, I can, you know, oh gosh. Afrikaans is interesting, isn't it? I mean, it just sounds like a bunch of a few very key countries had a baby dialect. But one thing, for the sake of time, and Keri, please, with your view on this, one thing that I think that's really cool about KTS's approaches to accents in particular is that there's a particular framework around accents that puts it into a lens where you can really get a firm or a very, very comprehensive understanding of any accent that a human can speak. You know, you look, it doesn't, I know that with accents, we tend to go right to vowel shifts, you know, like, okay, how do I say trap? How do I say kitten? How do I say this word in the script? But KTS looks at more than that in a very playful, investigative manner. Keri, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say, posture is sort of the magic trick of the accent work, and a really anchoring thing for performers on set and on stage, waiting in the wings and in the waiting room at the audition. I think posture is a really, really grounding thing that takes care of so much without you having to obsess about every sound that you will be making. Miss Jennifer says the dorsum is the middle / body of the tongue. Where exactly is the blade in relation to the tip? So the tip is this edge right there, and the blade is like that. I hope that clarifies. So again, if my hand is the tongue model, the edge here is basically the tip, and my fingernails are the blade. That's basically it.
I think we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. We are technically at time. If you are able to stay for a few extra minutes, we welcome you to do so. But before we take any remaining questions,
I'm going to open a bottle of wine.
Keri's going to open a bottle of wine. I'm going to dance. I've copied and pasted, as you do, the Knight-Thompson Speechwork website. We just announced our certification for next summer, as well as all the workshops that are going to happen, experiencing speech, the phonetics intensive, experiencing accents. They are at this time online, given where we're at in the world. But yeah, if you have any questions about the work, don't be shy, reach out to us. Reach out to anyone on the team, and we would love to tell you more about this kind of work.
And you can also find all the certified teachers listed on the website, and most of them are spread out all around the country, teaching all sorts of things locally in their cities when we're allowed to gather and teach, online these days. So really just dive in and exploit that. There's so much available right now in terms of that. And then there's a quick question, Brendan, will Experiencing Speech stay online after this year, or will it go to in person? So all that stuff is going to depend on what's happening with the coronavirus, but they do make a point of hosting Experiencing Speech in varying cities. So they'll definitely make an effort to circle back through New York for that at some point. But I think that's where we'll probably wrap up. I'll just put mine and Foster's. Do you mind if I put your email in there?
Not at all. Hit me up.
I'm going to put both our emails in the chat in case anything comes up. And Foster, what is yours again?
FJOHNS1@gmail.com.
All right. So those are both in the chat now, if you want to grab those.
Yes. Nick, your beard. Sorry.
I'm going to stop the recording here.
Yes.
And then if you